new inflation report from the federal government today shows the consumer price index up 7.9% over the last year. That's an increase that we have not seen in 40 years, since January of 1982.
Prices for food and housing up dramatically, not to mention record high energy costs, which have only gone up since Russia invaded Ukraine. President Biden blames Putin, saying, quote, today's inflation report is a reminder that Americans' budgets are being stretched by price increases and families are starting to feel the impacts of Putin's price hike. A large contributor to inflation this month was an increase in gas and energy prices as markets reacted to Putin's aggressive actions. CNN Global economic analyst Rana Foroohar joins us now. Rana, great to have you here. Okay, so as you probably know, many politicians act as though it's President Biden who caused inflation and that he can fix this. Can he do something about it?
Well, he can do things at the margins. You know, he can release some of the strategic petroleum reserves, which he's already called for. You know, he can probably try and get bipartisan agreement for more drilling. That's something that's on the table. But no, I mean, you know, he did not cause the war, which caused prices to surge. Now, inflation was already rising, for sure. We had supply chain issues. Some of that was actually because of good news, meaning a really strong recovery, stronger than people would have expected following that latest wave of COVID. But gas and oil is going to be up because of this war, and there's no question. And grain, too. Ukraine and Russia have a quarter of the world's grain reserves.
So when the president says, and the White House doubled down, Jen Psaki says that inflation, gas prices are in large part due to Putin's war, there is some credence to that.
100%. No, you saw a little bit of an uptick in oil prior to the invasion of Ukraine, but you saw prices absolutely surge after that. And they will go up further if there are more bans on energy. You know, the U.S. is banning Russian oil. European allies are trying desperately to plug that gap, but you know they get 40% of their energy from Russia, and as they try and pull more supply off the market, that's going to create more inflation. This is a short-term issue, you know, a year or two that we're not going to get out from under.
Let's talk about drilling. The U.S. is sitting on 38 billion barrels of oil reserves untapped.
Yep.
Here on our land. Can we drill our way out of this?
Well, that's been very contentious, particularly within the Democratic Party. You know, environmentalists have said, no way, you know, we've got to make the transition to clean. I actually think that there is some room, in fact, to combine those things, energy security and climate change. If you think about the U.S. and Europe coming together on that and, you know, maybe ramping up refinery production for LNG to try and get some more gas over to Europe, in exchange for Europe maybe working together with us on climate goals. Because ultimately, you want national security. That means, you know, getting out from under in the short term with this war, but it also means transitioning to those high-growth technologies that are the future. I mean, that's where not only the saving the planet is going to come from, but jobs are going to come from. So I kind of see it as a moment potentially for a grand bargain, you know, if we can get the pieces right.
Before the war, supply chain issues, high demand were driving the surge in inflation. Have those variables subsided some in the last month?
Some and in some categories, but now we're seeing new categories coming forward. I mean, just the sanctions on Russia, taking Russia out of the SWIFT system, for example, that creates a potential domino effect where, all right, they're not making their payments, but what about all those counterparties on the other side in Europe and in Asia? We're going to begin to see some of that ping through the system. Already in Europe, you've seen automotive plants having to shut down because they can't get Ukrainian parts. So there's a lot of things here still to roll out.
A lot to roll out. Rana Foroohar, thanks so much for helping us understand it.